I was asked by the organizers in terms of doing introductions to do a little more framing than introducing. We all have Google, and there are lots of interesting stories to be found on Google and factoids about our speaker. But I thought, I'll take 2 minutes at the opening just to talk about a transatlantic Christian council from this side of the Atlantic, but not the United States of America. Because there is an invisible border at the 49th parallel. And some of the translation that has to happen between different contexts is as significant between countries that are as connected as Canada and the United States. 70% of our trade is with the United States. And yet it was striking to me yesterday afternoon that much of the way things were framed and communicated by some of our American friends, who are our closest friends and allies, simply would fall outside of the norm of discourse in a Canadian setting. You could not say in a Canadian setting some of the things that were said yesterday afternoon and belong to any of the mainstream in Canadian politics. You could take those positions, but the language with which it was communicated is entirely different. It was a stark reminder to me of the challenge that we are going to be discussing today as we talk about what it means to work together. In Canada, we don't have the separation of church and state tradition. In fact, Canada is, to some extent, a peace treaty between French Catholics and English Protestants. We have very embedded into our history and our culture a particular way of having religious dialogue. At the same time, neither do we have the civil religion tradition that you have in the United States, which allows for a language and a candor in the public square. We're officially a multicultural country. In Toronto, Caucasians, while the largest group, are a minority. And so we've had a very different way of navigating. Cardis, we started Cardis in 2000, recognizing the fact that there were some unique challenges in terms of bringing the wisdom and insights of 2,000 years of Christian social thought to the issues of the day. And it's striking as I thought about the proposal that we hope to end up with this afternoon, and I want you to listen with that lens in mind today, also in our conversation. I think there are two challenges we're going to face. On the one hand, we're going to have to get beyond the 30,000-foot theoretical level of conversation, in which I would imagine there would be general agreement in this room, to recognize the fact that we need to, if this is going to be meaningful and long-term on an institutional level of working together, we're going to have to find ways to make it practical and tangible in terms of the day-to-day experiences and work that each of us are engaged in our own country. So how to take the things that we can agree on at a conference internationally and to bring it down to that sort of level, I think will be a real challenge. That said, I think we also have to recognize that in our postmodern, post-Christendom era, our understanding of what 2,000 years of Christian social thought means in our context may be changing. I know that in Canada, I have said for the last number of years, we have to learn how to be Daniel in Babylon, as opposed to some of the other assumptions that have informed most of the tradition of Christian engagement in the public square. We have to learn what it means to speak winsomely in a pagan context and culture where many of the core assumptions and even language that we use cannot be assumed. We also are going to have to deal with the challenge that the identification of Christian social thought in our own countries is often mixed with some idolatry. There's bad mixed with the good. And a new lens also we have to be open to be challenged internally in terms of how we both communicate and live up to the ideals. And that will take integrity and courage. The second challenge that we will have is to understand that in most of our situations, I think, public policy in our own country requires a global perspective. I'm reminded of the fact that the response to 2008 economic crisis required a G20 finance ministers meeting where we all committed together to do certain things in order to overcome things. No longer was the nation state the primary actor. We have this with NAFTA in Europe, you have the European Union. I know in Canada, we're in the process of signing a free trade agreement with the European Union that will change the dynamics again. So from an economic point of view, from a security, yesterday was the 13th anniversary of 9/11, and I don't need to recount to this room what has happened since there in terms of international global security. And I think that speaks to the fact that probably those of us in the Christian think tank world who take seriously our faith commitments and want to apply them, we need each other. We need each other to learn and to help get beyond our own borders in a way that we probably never did before. That's why I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to participate. I'm also privileged to introduce our speakers. They already have been highlighted. I've been a long admirer of Os Guinness. The Williamsburg Charter and his book, The American Hour, was formative in my early years of political engagement. He's the offspring of medical missionaries, has an impressive international journalistic career, and not least importantly among his credentials, he is the great-grandson of the Dublin brewer. Ladies and gentlemen, you can find out much more about him by Googling his name, but rather than list his impressive resume, please join me in giving him a welcome.